Ethan and Clare Reynolds were the couple everyone envied, the perfect picture of success and love. Their elegant suburban home gleamed like something out of a magazine, the white picket fence trimmed to precision, the flowerbeds always in bloom. Ethan, a respected architect, was known for his calm charm, while Clare, a talented event planner, radiated grace wherever she went. Together, they were the kind of couple who seemed untouchable, beautiful, successful, and now, expecting their first child. Friends flooded their posts with heart emojis as they shared photos of the baby nursery, pastel walls, and handwritten quotes about love and family. But what those images didn't show was the quiet tension that had begun to creep between them. Ethan noticed it first in the small moments. The way Clare would suddenly silence her phone when he walked into the room, or how her once playful laughter had grown cautious, guarded. She often stepped out onto the porch late at night, whispering into her phone with her back turned. When Ethan asked, she'd smile faintly and say it was just work. But her eyes betrayed something else. Fear. The change unsettled him, yet he convinced himself it was just stress from pregnancy. At a family dinner one evening, Clare seemed particularly uneasy. She picked at her food, barely joining the conversation, her hands trembling as she reached for her glass. When their relatives joked about her pregnancy nerves, she forced a smile, but Ethan saw the panic flicker beneath it. Later that night, as they prepared for bed, she turned to him, her expression strangely serious. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling, "if anything ever happens to me, don't believe what you see." Ethan chuckled softly, brushing her cheek. "You've been watching too many thrillers," he teased. But her eyes didn't move, and her silence chilled him, a warning he would only understand when it was too late. The morning Clare vanished began like any other, quiet and unremarkable, the kind of day that would later feel surreal in memory. Ethan remembered waking up alone, assuming she had gone for one of her usual morning walks. But as hours passed and her phone went straight to voicemail, a slow panic began to twist in his chest. He drove around the neighborhood, retraced her usual routes, and called her friends, but no one had seen her. By afternoon, the police were involved, and that's when everything started to unravel. Clare's car was discovered near an old, abandoned pier on the outskirts of town, the kind of place they used to visit years ago for late-night talks. The driver's door hung open, the keys still in the ignition, and her phone lay on the passenger seat. No signs of struggle, no footprints leading away, just emptiness. To everyone else, it looked like an accident. Maybe she slipped, maybe she'd fallen into the water. But Ethan knew something didn't fit. The pier was miles away from her usual routes, and Clare hated being near the water, especially since becoming pregnant. The police questioned him for hours. Cameras flashed outside his home as reporters shouted questions about the missing pregnant wife. Overnight, Ethan became a public figure, the grieving husband with tearful eyes and a trembling voice. He begged on national television for anyone with information to come forward. But behind the cameras, his confusion was suffocating. Every room in their home reminded him of her, yet something felt off. A framed photo on the mantel had been turned slightly to the left. A drawer in her vanity, one she always kept locked, was cracked open. A single strand of her hair lay on the floor beside it, placed, almost deliberately. It was as if Clare hadn't vanished at all, but left behind a trail only he was meant to see. The house no longer felt like home. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light through the curtains seemed to carry Clare's absence. The laughter that once filled those walls had turned into haunting silence. When Ethan walked through the front door after days of police searches and press conferences, the stillness was unbearable. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, the scent clinging stubbornly to the walls, as if refusing to let go. The nursery was the hardest room to enter. Half-painted walls, a crib still in pieces, and tiny folded baby clothes waited patiently for a future that had suddenly vanished. Ethan stood there for minutes, staring at the rocking chair she'd bought, his heart heavy with questions that wouldn't stop spinning in his head. But then, as he moved through the house, small oddities began to catch his eye. Receipts that had once been pinned neatly to Clare's office corkboard were missing, though the pushpins remained. Her planner, usually meticulous, had entire pages torn out. He noticed a new camera lens sitting in its unopened box on her desk, one he didn't remember buying, though she had mentioned nothing about replacing her old equipment. Underneath the box, almost hidden beneath a stack of old event invitations, lay a note written in Claire's familiar looping script, "Truth lives in silence." The words chilled him. That night, as rain lashed against the windows, Ethan sat in the darkened living room, unable to sleep. The house felt alive with secrets. Around midnight, he heard it, faint, rhythmic clicks, like a soft mechanical whisper coming from somewhere near the bookshelf. He rose, searching every corner, every vent, every shadow, but found nothing. Still, the sound lingered in his mind. Maybe it wasn't the house making noise. Maybe Clare had left something behind, something meant only for him to find. Thunder rolled outside, rattling the windows as rain battered against the glass. Ethan sat in the living room, lost in thought, when something caught his eye, a faint red glimmer in the darkness. It blinked once, then again, from behind the tall oak bookshelf near the corner of the room. For a moment, he thought it was just a reflection, a trick of light. But when he moved closer, the glow sharpened, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. His pulse quickened. With trembling hands, he pulled the heavy shelf away from the wall, books sliding to the floor. Behind it, half concealed by a layer of dust, was a small black object no bigger than his palm. A camera, carefully wired, still recording. Ethan froze. A hidden camera. His first thought was invasion, someone spying on them. But as he examined the neat wiring and placement, another possibility dawned. Had Clare done this? She'd worked in event management, handled high-end equipment all the time. The idea made his throat tighten. Maybe she'd left it there for him to find. Maybe this was what she meant by not believing what he'd see. He connected the device to his laptop, and the folder that appeared made his heart skip. Months of recordings, all labeled by date. The first few clips were mundane. Clare watering plants, eating breakfast, scrolling on her phone while he read the newspaper beside her. Then came footage of quiet nights, her painting in the living room, humming softly. But when he reached the last few files, everything changed. In one clip, he saw himself asleep on the couch. A dark figure entered the frame, moving silently, standing over him. Ethan's heart raced as he turned up the volume. Claire's voice, faint and terrified, came from somewhere off-screen, whispering, "Please, stop." Then, silence. The figure leaned closer to the camera, and the footage cut to black. Ethan's hands trembled as he clicked through the files, each video dragging him deeper into a nightmare that no longer felt real. The camera's silent eye had witnessed things he couldn't remember, versions of his own life that seemed to exist outside his memory. The first few clips were blurry, filmed in the dark. But as he adjusted the brightness, the images sharpened into moments that froze his blood. He saw himself, sitting on the couch, pacing the hallway, even talking to Clare, but he couldn't recall any of it. His movements looked strange, stiff, almost mechanical, as though he were mimicking himself. One video made his chest tighten. Clare was in the living room, her face streaked with tears, clutching her stomach as if in pain. She looked directly at the camera, her voice shaky but urgent. "He doesn't know what's happening to him," she whispered. "They did something to him." Her eyes darted to the side, as though someone was nearby, unseen. Ethan paused the video, heart pounding in disbelief. They did something to him? Who were they? Then came the footage that shattered him. In the dead of night, the camera caught a man entering the nursery, someone who looked exactly like Ethan. Same height, same build, even the same pajamas. He moved quietly to the crib, lingering there for minutes, before vanishing into the hallway. Ethan stared at the screen, horrified. It wasn't him, it couldn't be him. He'd never sleepwalked, never blacked out. Yet the image on the screen was undeniable. Panicked, he called the police, desperate for answers. But when investigators examined the files, entire portions of the recordings had been erased, dates missing, data corrupted. The authorities' skeptical glances returned, whispers of guilt resurfaced, and once again, Ethan found himself trapped between nightmare and reality. A husband fighting not just to clear his name, but to uncover whether the monster in those videos was real, or inside his own mind. Desperate to prove his innocence, Ethan reached out to someone outside the police, a cybersecurity expert named Lucas, a wiry, sharp-eyed man who specialized in digital forensics. Lucas arrived with a suitcase of equipment and a calm, analytical demeanor. Together, they connected the hidden camera's drive to a more powerful system, bypassing corrupted sectors and peeling back layers of encrypted data. Within hours, Lucas uncovered what Ethan had only suspected: the footage had been tampered with. Someone had accessed it remotely, deleting and rewriting entire sections as if trying to rewrite the past. But digital fingerprints remained. The restored fragments revealed something Ethan couldn't have imagined. In one clip, Claire stood in a dimly lit cafe, her hood pulled low over her face. Across from her sat a man who looked exactly like Ethan. Same eyes, same voice, same faint scar near the temple. Yet the man's smile was sharper, colder. Claire leaned in close, whispering urgently while glancing over her shoulder. Ethan paused the video, his stomach lurching. Was this a twin he'd never known about? A body double? Or something more sinister? Lucas dug deeper into Claire's laptop, accessing hidden directories she'd left locked behind layers of passwords. Inside, dozens of encrypted files bore the name Project Mirror. Metadata pointed to a private research facility, one Claire had worked with briefly during her time organizing corporate events. But this wasn't a normal client. According to internal memos, the lab specialized in experimental neural recording, identity cloning, and memory manipulation. Suddenly, every strange moment, every lapse, every warning she'd whispered began to click into place. She hadn't been hiding from him. She'd been documenting a nightmare to protect him. Claire hadn't vanished because she betrayed Ethan. She'd vanished because someone had turned him into a weapon he didn't understand. The research facility was nothing like Ethan expected: cold, sterile, and nearly abandoned. The building stood on the outskirts of the city, its halls echoing with a hum of fluorescent lights and the faint scent of chemicals long since spilled. He moved through the corridors with Lucas by his side until a weary-looking woman stepped out from one of the side rooms. Her ID badge read Dr. Lena Harrow. When she saw Ethan, her face drained of color, as if she'd seen a ghost. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. But when Ethan begged her for the truth, about Claire, about Project Mirror, her resistance broke. Lena led them into a storage room cluttered with old files and computer terminals. "Claire was never supposed to find out," she said, her hands trembling. "She was here planning a corporate event for Daniel Voss, our director. But Claire was sharp, too curious. She accessed restricted files and learned what he'd been hiding." Ethan listened, barely breathing, as Lena revealed the horrifying details. Voss wasn't just developing AI-assisted therapy or neural mapping, he was creating replicas. Synthetic behavioral models built from human brain data. They could mimic memories, mannerisms, even emotions. Ethan's blood ran cold. Claire discovered that one of the prototypes, Subject 17, was modeled after you, Lena continued. They used public data, photos, voice samples, even your online patterns. But something went wrong. The replica became unstable, violent. It escaped the lab. Ethan staggered back. "So the man in the video," Lena nodded grimly, "wasn't you. It was him. And he thought Claire was part of the project that created him. She knew she was in danger, so she hid cameras, collected proof. But before she could go public, she disappeared, maybe taken, maybe hiding. Either way, she did it to protect you and your child." The final recovered video was different from the others. It wasn't shaky or hidden, it was deliberate, set up like a farewell. Ethan opened the file and there she was. Claire, sitting on the edge of their bed, her hair pulled back, her face pale but steady. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes red-rimmed but unwavering. "Ethan," she began softly, her voice trembling just enough to betray her fear. "If you find this, know that I never doubted you. The man you saw, that wasn't you. It was what they made of you." Ethan's breath caught. He leaned closer to the screen as she continued, her tone equal parts urgent and gentle. "They used you, Ethan. They built something from you. I don't know how much you'll remember or what they've done, but it's not your fault. I planted copies of everything, the footage, the documents. I even sent some to the authorities, but I don't know if they'll believe me. This runs deeper than you think." She paused, swallowing hard, and her eyes flickered with something like resignation. "Find the truth," she whispered. "Don't let them erase who you are." Her words lingered in the room like a ghost. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs as he replayed the clip, searching for any detail, any clue. That's when he saw it. In the final seconds, just as she turned her head slightly, her eyes darted to the side. She wasn't alone. A shadow shifted in the background, a figure moving out of frame. The recording cut to black. Ethan sat frozen, staring at the blank screen. It was the last thing she'd left him, not just evidence, but a plea. A warning wrapped in love, urging him to keep fighting for the truth before it vanished forever. The trail led Ethan to the outskirts of the city, where the last coordinates from Clare's encrypted files pointed, a decaying industrial site surrounded by barbed wire and silence. The rain hadn't stopped all night, soaking his clothes as he forced open the rusted gate. Inside, the old research facility stood hollow and lifeless, but electricity still pulsed faintly through its veins. Flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Ethan moved down the corridor, following the faint sound of movement. Then he saw it, a silhouette at the end of the hall, standing perfectly still. When the figure turned, Ethan's heart stopped. It was him. Same eyes, same stance, same scar near the temple, but the smile was wrong. Too sharp. Too rehearsed. "Been waiting for you," the replica said, voice eerily calm. "You're the original, flawed, unstable. I'm what you were meant to be. The version Clare was supposed to keep." Ethan's hands clenched. "Where is she?" The imposter tilted his head, almost amused. "You mean the woman who tried to destroy everything? She didn't understand perfection. She ran before I could fix it." The tension exploded. The two men collided, grappling amid overturned tables and broken monitors. The fight was messy, brutal, neither backing down, both identical in strength and movement. In the chaos, the replica's arm slammed against a control panel, accidentally triggering a live recording from the lab's archives. Ethan froze as Claire's face appeared on the screen, terrified but fierce. She was confronting the imposter, tricking him, escaping through a back door. Her final act was recorded, her victory hidden in plain sight. Alarms blared, red lights flashing through the hall. Ethan stumbled toward another terminal and pulled a small camera drive from a compartment marked with Claire's name. On it was the last file, grainy footage of her, disguised, boarding a bus into the night. Her hand rested on her stomach. She was alive. Months have passed since the chaos unraveled, since the truth shattered and rebuilt Ethan's life. The city has moved on, the headlines faded, and Project Mirror has been exposed for what it truly was, a network of stolen identities, corruption, and human manipulation. Daniel Voss and his team are behind bars, their empire crumbling under the weight of Claire's evidence. Yet, for Ethan, victory feels hollow. He's free, but the silence she left behind is deafening. Now, he lives in a quiet coastal town, a place far from the cameras, the questions, and the shadows of his old life. Each morning, he visits a small seaside cafe overlooking the gray horizon, sipping black coffee as the waves crash against the rocks. The world calls him the man who uncovered one of the century's biggest scandals, but all he feels is absence. One rainy afternoon, he opens Claire's old diary, the one recovered from the lab's archives. Between sketches of their nursery and half-written letters, a folded photograph slips out. His breath catches. It's Clare, smiling faintly, hair tousled by the wind, holding their newborn beside a distant lighthouse. On the back, her familiar handwriting reads, "Some truths are meant to be seen only by those who deserve them." A tear slips down Ethan's cheek, but this time, it's not from pain. It's peace. He realizes that Clare didn't just run, she built a sanctuary for their child, away from the chaos of the mirrored world. As he returns home that evening, Ethan takes the small hidden camera, once a symbol of paranoia and deception, and places it gently on a shelf. Its red light stays dark. For the first time, the silence feels like freedom.